Just as anyone who can use a phrase such as the Jewish mentality is clearly anti-Semitic. So anyone who uses a phrase like the Muslim mentality, no matter how pretty or soft-spoken or how compelling her backstory, is just as clearly Islamophobic. Only a bigot could generalize in such a way about millions of Jews or nearly 1.5 billion Muslims. But it isn't only people who've been stereotyped here. It's religion itself, seen solely in terms of belief, with no concept of tradition, of identity, of culture, of a way of being in and of the world. Let me explain a little bit by saying that though I'm agnostic, on the anniversary of my parents' deaths, I light a memorial candle and I recite the Kaddish, the prayer for the dead. And I do this as a matter of practice, not of belief. I do it because it feels right. It's a matter of tradition and of loyalty, a means of honoring my parents in a way that I know they would be glad to be honored. It's an act that both comforts me and binds me to my history, my identity, my sense of myself. But you know, hardly any American Jews I know who consider themselves far more religious than I am can recite the Kaddish prayer without an English transliteration, and even then they can't do it very well. And while the Christians I know go to church every Sunday, what most of them actually know about the history of their own religion is dismayingly little. So here's the thing that's so easy to forget. We talk about ignorance of Islam, but non-Muslims are often, and in fact usually, just as ignorant about their own faiths. And often they distort their own faiths as badly as they distort Islam. Sometimes I'm even tempted to think that most evangelical Christians only ever read one book of the Bible, and that's the last one, Revelation, with its apocalyptic nightmares. Just as you could imagine that most Islamist extremists seem to know only one surah of the Qur'an, repentance, with the sword verses, so-called. An Orientalist misnomer, of course, right there, since the word sword never appears. And they have no idea of the historical circumstances of this surah, of its context, its frame of reference. Whoops. And so we come back to the highlighter version. Let's look, for instance, at this verse. When God delivers the city into your hands, you shall smite every male with the edge of your sword. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but shall surely destroy them all. I haven't got it wrong. If this doesn't sound too familiar, that's because it is in fact one of the many peace-loving passages from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, which continues to drive home the point. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall surely destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites. That's a lot of people. And this isn't the only kill them all order in the Bible. There's plenty more in Judges and Samuel, just for a start. Look up the word destroy in a biblical concordance and you'll find one of the longest lists it offers. The entry for peace is barely a quarter as long. On the other hand, we have these passages, all of which sound very familiar to Christians, even if they can't quite place them. Do not let hatred lead you away from justice. If anyone kills a person, it is as if they have killed all humanity. If they save a life, it is as if they have saved the lives of all humanity. An eye for an eye was formerly prescribed, but if anyone forgives out of mercy and charity, this will serve as atonement for their own bad deeds. Of course, none of these are from the Gospels, though they certainly sound to Christians as though they should be, but from the Qur'an. So that infamous section in the 9th surah about killing the unbelievers, it does indeed say that, but in a very specific context. The anticipated conquest of Mecca, where fighting was usually forbidden. Just 8 years after the Hijrah, the Muslims of Medina were ready to take Mecca, and Muhammad's followers had asked him for guidance as to what to do if they came under attack near the Kaaba. Could they fight back, and in that case even kill someone on holy ground? The response in the form of a revelation was that yes, this was permitted, but the permission to use violence comes hedged about with qualifiers. Not you must kill unbelievers in Mecca, but you are allowed to, but only after a grace period is over. And only if there is no other pact in place by then. And only if they try to keep you away from the Kaaba. And only if they attack you first, and even then. God is merciful, forgiveness is supreme, and so, essentially, better if you don't. Now, I'm fascinated by this approach of better if you don't, which appears several times in the Qur'an. What we have here, as I understand it, is a gradualist approach to the radical social changes included in the Prophet's message. It's a recognition that if change is really to take root, it can't be dictated and imposed on people from above, but that they need to be invited into it. So basically, instead of an order, it's an invitation to a better way of doing things, an appeal to the better side of human nature. Yes, if you insist, you may continue in the old ways, but really think about it, consider carefully, and you'll see. Better if you don't. It's a recognition that it takes time for mere humans to adjust to a new way of seeing and being in the world. The same might also be said of a new way of both